daily update throughout the Cannes fortnight here on France 24. 4 years ago, Iran's clerics faced their stiffest test since the revolution. A wave of grassroots protests against the re-election of President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Where's my vote? The rallying cry at the time. The outside world discovering an aspiring urban middle class that shattered a lot of stereotypes about Iran. 4 years later, the reformist genie seems to be back in the bottle. In fact, 2 of the 2009 candidates are still under house arrest. This year's list of contenders for the June 14th poll has been purged of upstarts, with, for instance, former President Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani barred from running. Can we still expect surprises, though? Or does Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei have it all under control? As Iran backs Hezbollah and Assad in Syria, is the regime immune to change from within? Today in the France 24 debate, Iran, no more surprises. With us to talk about it, Nushabeh Amireh of Iranian news website RuzOnline.com. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome as well to research fellow at the European Institute for Strategic Studies, Ruzbeh Parsi, and Ramin Param, author of it's written in French, right? Born in Ispahan, Né à Ispahan, the book about the Iranian businessman Jack Mahar, his life story.
Yes.
And joining us from New York, we're speaking to one of those disqualified candidates for president, Iranian-American academic Houshang Amir Hamadi. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Houshang Amir Ahmadi.
Amir Hamadi, excuse me for the pronunciation.
That's okay.
The France 24 debate, where you can always join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, our hashtag F24Debate. And then there were 8, the Supreme Council culling the list of candidates for that June 14th first round of voting.
Disqualified by Iran's Guardians Council, but still backed by the president. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said Wednesday he would appeal to the country's holy leader to reverse the electoral watchdog's decision that bars one of the president's top aides from running in the June 14th presidential election. Many believe that Esfandir Rahim Mashai is paying for the current president's feuds with the supreme leader. According to a specialist on Iran who spoke to France 24, the appeal is unlikely to change much.
It is highly unlikely that Mashai's name will be put back on the list. By eliminating him, an entire section of the population will need to be convinced to vote for another candidate, one that the holy leader supports.
Of the 8 candidates, Mashai wasn't the only one excluded. The Guardians Council also rejected Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani's bid. A relative moderate and former president, Rafsanjani was once hailed as a pillar of the Islamic Revolution. He criticized the crackdown on protests after the 2009 election, a move that won him praise from reformists but angered the clerical elite.
I think that Rafsanjani feels committed towards this country and its people.
Mashai did not deserve to run because he was really not qualified enough for the presidency. But I was really surprised by Rafsanjani's disqualification. It's a big shock.
The council's decision removes the so-called wild cards from the election and clears the playing field for the establishment-friendly candidates.
And as we said at the outset, Houshang Amir Hamadi, you were hoping to be one of those wild cards. What's your reaction to the fact that your candidacy was disqualified?
Well, first, let me make a clarification. I was not disqualified. Just right before the Guardian Councils make the decision, I withdraw. I was in Iran, and I got serious advice, recommendation, and in fact, I was told by some forceful statements that I should pull out because the environment was not ripe for my candidacy. And I also talked to my consultants in Tehran, and they advised the same. So I pulled out right before the Guardian Council decides, and I'm very pleased to say that I was not disqualified, and I did not give this opportunity to the Guardian Council to disqualify me.
Why were you advised? Why were you advised to pull out? Were you intimidated?
Because, well, I was in Iran, and then the environment was very tough. The politics is quite chaotic. In fact, I knew almost certain that this campaign is going to go in the direction that it has gone. That is, I wasn't really at all hopeful that either Mashai or Rafsanjani or any people close to that level of support in the country will be qualified. This campaign from the very beginning was to be controlled, and in fact, the leader of the Islamic Republic has said over and over that this was a dangerous curve, quote unquote, and that he wanted to pass through this curve safely and then see what he can do for the future of the country. So this was not an election, it was to be a curve to be passed. So again, I realized in Tehran that the curve is really a curve, and that there is a serious commitment in the part of the government to pass through it, and without any serious threat to the establishment. And obviously the country is concerned about the Islamic Republic. The leaders have been very concerned about this election from the very beginning, given the experience back in 2009. And they didn't want to take any chance. Absolutely, they wanted to take zero chance. And I was
sorry, when you say you didn't want to take any chance, what do you mean by you didn't want to take a chance?
See, for example, in Tehran I learned, and they told me openly, even the officials, that my campaign was very popular in the country, that had lots of support, and lots of people were also talking on my behalf, which obviously were not authorized, and they were concerned that these people were trying to disturb the peace, quote unquote, as I was told. They even told me that my life could be in danger by not the government, of course, but the people who dislike the government. So they were very concerned, and they were very nervous that they should not let anything happen that will create disturbance in the society. So again, obviously they had the same concern with Mashai and Rafsanjani, because there were also popular people out there, and they could have brought lots of people to the streets.
Nushabe Amiri, your thoughts?
Well, I was listening to Mr. Amir Ahmadi, and I could say that without going to Tehran and having the possibility of going to Tehran, we could realize that how is the situation. I personally, I would expect this disqualification, because if you see the process of the political things in Iran, you would reach this conclusion, because Khamenei now. In fact, with his consultant, with the other people who gives him all sorts of consultation, he has chosen to go towards North Korea. So we don't need to have lots of candidates and those people who want to talk about the things differently and so on. We should have a system that he orders and the other obey. And but at the same time, it's a contradiction inside this system.
All right, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. As we can see, there's been a lot of reactions. There were reactions even before the announcement. There was a lot of anticipation that Ahmadinejad's right-hand man would be barred. His chances of a successful appeal of that disqualification ruled out in the report that you watched at the outset, and that's probably not going to please his boss.
Mashai means Ahmadinejad, and Ahmadinejad means Mashai.
The fact that Mashai will not be running, Rouzbeh Parsi, what impact is that going to have? What are Ahmadinejad supporters going to do?
Well, that remains to be seen, but the fact that he was disqualified or barred from standing as a candidate isn't really that surprising. I mean, in a sense, you can say they've been trying to build up a momentum to basically push him through, and it came to a standstill with the Guardian Council, because he was, in a sense, set up to be disqualified by the Guardian Council. He has antagonized so many, or rather his boss, Ahmadinejad, has. With Rafsanjani, it's the other way around. I mean, they try to discourage him from at all signing up, because with him, it's much more difficult to disqualify him for the simple reason that he's one of the founders of the Republic. But it seems they were willing to try that, and they did.
All right, let's talk about Rafsanjani. The Tehran daily newspaper, Ebtekar, its cover headline, "The Big Shock." But is it a done deal? Several open letters surfacing this Wednesday calling on the Ayatollah Khamenei to reinstate Rafsanjani, one from principalist MP Ali Motahari, who writes that under the current rules, if Ayatollah Khomeini had run under a pseudonym, he would have been disqualified. And speaking of Khomeini, his daughter publishing her own open letter, calling on the supreme leader to reinstate Rafsanjani. Both of these coming out this Wednesday. Again, for those of us who don't know anything about Iran, it's quite surprising to see how all this is played out in public.
Yes, I'm afraid, François, that we are giving a misconception to our audience here that there is something going on in Iran which is called elections. So people
But could Khamenei reverse himself and reinstate Rafsanjani? Some people believe it's possible.
I mean, he has done that before, but that doesn't mean that we have elections.
We should see why, if he does that.
Yeah, he did that in 1384 in our calendar, 5 years ago. But please let me insist on this point that what is going on in Iran is more of a masquerade. It's not an election. It has nothing to do with free and fair elections. As we recognize free and fair elections, there might be, people who believe in this thing. Mr. Amir Ahmadi is probably the only person in the world who takes Mr. Amir Ahmadi seriously. But this could have been expected. I mean, a totalitarian system could not allow its backbone to be weakened. And the backbone of this thing is the Velayat Faqih, is the supreme leader. And weakening that backbone means the falling apart of this regime. So it was quite expectable that he's going to just to clear out the entire scene and get rid of his adversary and just consolidate the backbone of the regime around his office and his person.
Rouzbeh Parsi, okay, we know obviously that the supreme leader has the final say in Iran. But is it fair, as Ramin and Nushibeh have been saying, that this is a dictatorship?
Well, I'm obviously of a different opinion on this. I think the Iranian system is much more complex than that. We're dealing with different circles of power and different networks, and they're all jockeying for power in different arenas. And they have to be lined up by the supreme leader for big decisions. So it's not that he can just simply say, this is the way it's going to be, and everyone will fall in line.
But we're going towards that.
If I may, there is a trajectory, if you will, of more power being concentrated to the office of the leader. That is true. But that does not mean that society itself is becoming homogenized towards the supreme leader's office. That is, the rest of society still contains different centers of power.
Yeah,
and
you cannot mix up society and the regime. You can't
and
just
they
do that.
still will need to be dealt with in terms of negotiations and etc. So in that sense, the supreme leader may be supreme. He has final say, but he does not have unique say.
Houshang Amir Hamadi, do you see Ayatollah Khamenei reinstating the candidacy of Rafsanjani?
Well, President Rafsanjani has already said that he will not accept a reinstatement by the supreme leader. So even if the supreme leader was to do that, Rafsanjani is out. He will not accept, and I know that for a fact. So that chapter is closed. That there is no open door there. That's done. As I don't think that Ahmadinejad will get anywhere to reinstate Mashai. I believe there also the door is closed. The fact is that as I said, the supreme leader wanted this campaign to be controlled, and it should be a campaign that will only pass, as safely as possible through this dangerous curve. And then he will see what to do next. It's very obvious that Iran will go almost certain farther to the right after this election. That's number one. Second, and that's not a good news for anything, and that obviously the next president will be to the far right of Ahmadinejad even. That's almost certain. And then I am also expecting that very little change will happen in the system's foreign and domestic policies, particularly foreign policies. There will be probably that foreign policy will be even further stiffened, if any. So again, this is going to be an election that is going to be won by the far right conservatives, and they're almost certain.
Right.
that will be the result.
I'm not so sure, because I only read the English language version of the communique of Rafsanjani. In it, he says, having been disqualified, that Hashemi recommended to all supporters and campaign office members to respect the law, it said. Well, I'm not quite sure that he's against the concept of running.
I think it's important to be careful with the words here. What he has basically said that he's not going to contest it. But then Rafsanjani's style in general is that he waits things out and expects people to come to him and kind of admonish him or implore him to do things. So it's still theoretically possible that he will then be asked by more and more people, like in the letters today, to be reinstated. The problem for him, of course, is that if he were to ask for it, or if others were to ask for on his behalf, it will basically just underline the fact that Khamenei still runs the show and Rafsanjani has to ask for permission. And that's probably why he's not going to do it himself.
The conservative press preparing public opinion for the decision in the lead-up, using, well, the age argument.
The reason the Guardian Council has announced that Rafsanjani is barred from the elections is that he's very old. The presidency requires a high level of activity, and therefore Mr. Hashemi Rafsanjani might not be able to work as the president.
So there you see the fact that he's 78 being put forth as the argument why he should not be running. But on the other hand, again, this letter coming out this Wednesday from Ayatollah Khomeini's daughter, will that have any impact at all?
Not really. These are all the jokes on Iran, because when we are talking about the age, it's Jannati who is 87, and everybody makes jokes about it. No, but in the letter of the daughter of Khomeini, they have said that the people who put comments under his letter, they said even today, if Khomeini would be present in this election, he would be disqualified. Why? Because it's a decision, it's a path which is drawn by the group behind the Khamenei. Yes, you're right. There is different gang behind him. It's not just Khamenei, but they have decided to go this way. So they find a different pretext to say these sort of things. And I don't think that because Rafsanjani, he is very clever. He won't be back. He has said that I thought it's a duty I should come, but now he's happy because he knows that with this situation, with this scenario, which is written by the group of Khamenei, there is no chance. And all these people who are there, they're all related to Khamenei somehow, and they are going to do something for him. Especially Mr. Jalili, who is connected to the Sepah, to the Revolutionary Guard. He wants to have the same strategy concerning the nuclear
issue. Concerning the nuclear issue. When we come back, we'll talk about that nuclear issue. We'll also talk about Iran's role on the world scene, most notably in Syria. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.